And we're live.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today. It's been several months since we've gotten together virtually, and it's been even longer, right, since we've met in person. But welcome and thanks for dialing in. Today we've got a special treat for y'all. Tracy has put together a wonderful little thing, and I don't want to get in the way of it, but I do have a couple quick slides ahead of actually diving in, just to say thank you really to some of our sponsors. So Savah Group, y'all are familiar with them. Hosting Development Managed Services have been with us, gosh, I don't even know how long, probably like a decade or so. And then Cypress, love Cypress. So I'm the co-founder of Cypress, and we help people write automated tests. Learn more on our website, and also we are hiring, so not to steal all of Tracy's juice there. And then this Labs. So I don't know, Tracy, if you want to say a couple words now, or just as you kick things off, just about.
Yeah. Well, I just moved to Atlanta, like during the pandemic. So I'm here. Go work at this stuff. We're remote, but yeah, still looking for people, looking for awesome people, especially Angular people. So yeah, come work with us. And Cypress.
And Cypress, that's right. Cool. Well, really, that's all I had to kick it off with. So I will now turn it over to Tracy and the gang. And I think I have these names out of order, but you can surely correct them.
Sure do. Yeah. So, excited about Angular World Tour. It's been a collaboration between Angular community and Angular core team to kind of just bring awesome talks and core team members and contributors to the community to come give amazing talks at local meetups. So you can go to angularworldtour.com and check out like all the different cities that we're going to. If you're not listening and you're not from Atlanta, you can request your city on the website very easily. And it's a fun thing to do. So I'm really excited that I get to be a part of it as well. Kicking us off, we're going to go ahead and have Ben give us a quick update on RxJS. And Ben, not everybody knows you. I mean, I know you think they do.
No,
I'm just kidding.
I don't think they do.
So there's this new guy, Ben Lush.
Yeah.
He's joining us for the first time. But yes, I'll let you take it from here.
All right. So for those of you who don't know me, which is probably a good thing for you because that means you've got lives and you're not stalking Tracy's timeline, which is where I show up most of the time. My name is Ben Lesh, and I am the project lead or the technical lead on RxJS. And I just want to give you some quick updates on what's going on with RxJS. The Angular world is mostly working with RxJS 6 right now. So if you create a new Angular project, it will start off with RxJS 6. RxJS 7 is actually out. And if you have a brand new Angular project or a fully updated Angular project, right now you should be able to update to 7. And the reason why you might want to do this is RxJS 7 all in. So if you were to include every single thing that RxJS possibly had is 53% of the size of RxJS 6. And that's including new features. And these new features are things like better promise handling. There's a lot better typings through the entire thing. So if you do update, you might find that you get TypeScript errors or whatever. It does require TypeScript 4.2 or above, which newer versions of Angular work with regardless. But so you would have to update TypeScript as well. But with this, the typings get inferred a lot better than they used to. So if you do get TypeScript errors, usually it's because you're explicitly typing things or explicitly passing generics to operators or something to try to get things to work because they didn't work before. And you can just remove those things and things will start working much better. So I recommend that people try it and keep an eye on their bundle size because you can see a reduction of, up to like 40 kilobytes or something like that in size. So it's much better. Other things that have come out with this, there's a new animation frames API, which is just a function that returns an observable that when you subscribe to it, fires on every animation frame and gives you the timings between from when it started and whatever. It just makes things a lot easier to do animations. I will post a link. I gave a very detailed talk on everything that was included in RxJS 7 because there's so much. It was literally like an hour and a half long talk. One thing that you should know is while we've deprecated things, we still haven't removed anything since RxJS 5. So if you have an RxJS 5 or RxJS 5.5 when we started using pipeable operators version of things, like everything that was there should still work in RxJS 7. So that's an important thing to note. Now in RxJS 8, which is going to be coming way down the road, RxJS 7 took a year to get out or so because we want to take our time so we don't freak people out. RxJS 8, we are going to be removing those, all of the deprecated stuff, most of which has been deprecated for up to 3 years. And the size reduction there is an additional 25% on top of what the 47% or whatever that we already shaved off. So it will be just a lot smaller still. And the other thing that we're trying to aim for as we move towards RxJS 8 is we're trying to make our APIs just in general smaller and have more explicit arguments and things like that. So it's easier to look at the RxJS code and kind of understand what it's doing. Because, that's a common problem with where people are unfamiliar with RxJS and they go and look and there's a lot of RxJS and they freak out because they don't quite know what things mean. New in RxJS, so we're up to actually 7.2 now. So new things in RxJS 7.2. Starting in 7.2, you can import all of the operators from the top level. Now, there are some things where people are like, well, there used to be a merge operator, and then there's a merge creation function that created an observable. There's the operator version is now called merge with. So it's still, merge is still there, but we've aliased it and renamed it to merge with. So we don't have any naming conflicts anymore. And you should be able to import everything from the top level just from RxJS. And that's kind of the direction we want to go. So that's partly for ergonomics, partly to make it easier to configure certain things to build in certain environments. So that'll be a nice thing to have going forward for you as well. Other stuff that we've got, I'm just going to share my screen really quick because I've got a few PRs that are sitting out and or merged that I'm going to bring up. There. All right. So right in here, this is the one where we're exporting all of everything from the top level RxJS. This is a feature that people have been asking,
and this is a little bit bigger.
Oh, sure, of course.
It's so teensy. Bigger if you can.
Yeah,
that's good.
So this is a feature people have been asking for a while. They've been wanting a way to tell when something is subscribed, or more commonly tell when someone is unsubscribed, which means it's not completing, it's not aired. I just want to know when my consumer has unsubscribed. And so we're adding to tap these lifecycle hooks. So basically, I wouldn't call them lifecycle hooks. They're lifecycle related because they're related to the lifecycle of the observable. But basically, we have one that'll fire when you subscribe. We have one that will fire when someone unsubscribes. So that's to say they didn't complete, they didn't air, just somebody called unsubscribe. And then there's also finalize in there, which behaves exactly like finalize the operator does. It will always fire whether you air, complete, or unsubscribe, and it fires after those events. So this is a thing. It's not in yet, but this will be in 7.3. So that's something that's kind of exciting to look out for. Another thing that other people I've had to do it multiple times, which is one of the catalysts for this. And I saw a coworker doing this again at Citadel. We have retry when, and retry when does enable things like exponential backoff a bit, but it's not easy because you end up having to deal with, keeping your own retry count and resetting it and that sort of thing. However, within retry, we have a retry counter that, counts, because you can say like retry and just give it a number. This is the same retry operator we've always had, and it will retry that number of times. And so we had an internal counter there, and we also have like we also already had a reset on success Boolean, which will just say, oh, if you get one message through successfully, then reset the counter, and the count goes back to 0 or whatever. And then if you've passed a 5, it'll continue to go up. Anyways, this adds the ability to delay your retry. And the reason this is interesting is you can get the retry count and the error, so you can examine the error to see if you want to retry or not. And then you can return any observable input type inside here. So this is an observable timer, and it will just wait for the first notification. When it gets the first notification, it will retry. If it closes without a first notification, it will just close, or it'll just complete rather. Or if it errors, it will error after that delay. So this is a cleaner and more understandable way to do retry when. And we're even talking about possibly deprecating retry when, although we haven't decided when we'll do that or if we'll do that. But this is just a much, much easier way. And you can see right here, we've done an exponential backoff. There's even discussions about having a function we could give people that would return this object for you. So you could just be like, oh, I want an exponential backoff of 100, and then it'd set all this stuff up for you, so you didn't need to know a special recipe to get that done, because this is a very common thing that people want to do. So that's another thing that we're looking forward to in 7.3. Again, I really recommend that you try getting to version 7 of RxJS. If for no other reason, then you're probably going to uncover a lot of weird bugs that happen because you're explicitly typing things or casting things as any or whatever to just try to make things work. And also because you're going to trim a good chunk of bundle size off of your apps. So that's hopefully a big win for the entire Angular community and the internet at large, because I know a lot of people use RxJS for a wide variety of things. And then you'll also start having access to some of these new cool features that we've added in here. And there's a lot more than this. There's a ton of really nice to have cool features that have been added in version 7. And version 7, the original beta started more than a year and a half ago or something like that. So it's something that's been around a long time. Google is using a version of version 7 in production. It's pretty battle tested. It's pretty safe to move to. The hardest thing for you when you move is probably going to be getting your TypeScript types fixed, which, as I said, generally just involves deleting where you're casting or explicitly passing generics or things like that. So please do try this. Again, you need to have TypeScript 4.2 or above, and you want to have the latest version, be upgraded to the latest version of Angular to do this. So that's pretty much all I have for my announcements on RxJS and RxJS 7. RxJS 8, again, coming down the pipe. It's going to be smaller and faster and easier to use, hopefully.
When you said pipe, was that like a coming down the pipe? Cool. Awesome. Well, that was amazing. Can you post a link? I'm saving that link for next time.
I'll get it.
But I'm so sad you can't join us for the entire one, because I love giving my talk with you as audience. It's Ben's part of my talk, but not.
My agent double booked me today.
Oh my gosh. I thought I was your agent. I would never double book you.
Yeah. You are my agent, and you did double book me.
Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. Give me access to all your calendars.
Yeah.
Mark, I could be your agent too.
Please do. I just want to be able to say you are my agent, and you did.
Oh yeah.
That was pretty great.
Yeah, Ben, post that link before you leave though.
Will do.
And make sure to follow Ben on Twitter at Ben Lesh if you have any additional questions. He's typically nice. Unless you double book him, then sometimes he gets a little annoyed.
Yeah. Well, all right. To date, everyone that's ever messaged me on Twitter with a question, I have answered for the most part. Sometimes I get ones that just say hi, and I don't know what to do with those. So, but if someone comes and they have a question, it takes me a little while sometimes to get to them because there's a spam folder that things fall into, but I do try to answer people's questions.
Okay, but seriously, I'm going to give you so much crap next time you don't answer my question on Twitter.
What questions?
Exactly. All right. Well, next up we have Mark. Unless Mark is gone forever. Mark disappeared. I'm just kidding.
Hey, friends.
You ready?
Yeah, I needed to go find a battery. I'm like, oh no, I need a AAA battery. My mouse pointer is totally toast right now in my slide changer. And I ran to go find a AAA. And my son said, what are you doing, Dada? Why are you running? So here we are. Let's see if we're back in the building here. Okay. Nope. We'll make it work. Don't worry about it. We'll make it work. I will survive this without a clicker.
You can do it. So for those of you who don't know Mark, when did you join the Angular team?
June of 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic.
Happy 1-year anniversary then.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a blast.
Oh, I love it. I'm waiting for your slides, by the way.
Oh, okay. Wonderful. I just thought you wanted to get to know me better.
Talk. I know. So Mark, what's your bank account number, your phone number, your social security number, your address?
I'll release all those details on Twitter. So definitely be sure to follow me at Mark Texan on Twitter.
I love it. Okay. Well, we're super excited to have you present today, State of Angular.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Thanks so much for having me. All right, friends. Well, thank you. I'd like to lead off with thank you because I am so grateful that you folks would spend time with us today. So thanks for coming out. Thank you to this incredible meetup for having us, and let's get this party started. My name is Mark Thompson. I work on the Angular team at Google, and I am absolutely thrilled to talk about the state of Angular. And when we talk about the state of Angular, I really like to think about our core values first, because the core values should drive the direction that we're going. And let's look at that now. So the core values, that one of the things is that we want to enable developers, empower them with the Angular tooling and the Angular platform to have a place where developers love to build apps, right? You have the tooling that you need to build great applications, but then those great applications to be applications that your users love to use. So we want to be a part of that workflow for you as well. And then this is the thing that I love the most, is that it has to be a community where everyone, regardless of technology level, experience, whether you are a bootcamp grad or a degreed candidate, no matter what you come from, where you come from, you are welcomed. And that's really important to us. And let's talk a little bit about the community, because as Tracy just pointed out, I joined the Angular team back in June of 2020. And here's something really unique, or at least interesting to me, that happened. I really felt like internally at Google, everybody wanted me to succeed. Like our internal Angular community, everyone wanted me to succeed. And then externally, I felt the same way. I felt that everyone really wanted me to succeed, and they were so welcoming. I felt like I was finally home with the people that I was meant to be with, because this community is absolutely fantastic. Now, I started thinking about that part, and then I thought about, well, what about for other people? What else is happening in the Angular community, and what is their experience? And so here's some cool stuff that I found out. We have so many outstanding Angular community members. Let's talk about someone like Eric Slack and the team over at the Angular Meetup. Eric does so much work to be intentional about including diverse and fresh faces to be able to speak in these meetups. And what's really cool is that if you are not ready, meaning like you need some more work, you're not sure what to do, you can reach out to Eric, and Eric will legit help you figure out, how to get ready, and then put you on a good path to being able to present. And that's because Eric loves the Angular community. Then we have James Henry and the team who made Angular ESLint. Now, the reason I pointed this out is because, well, if you work on a side project like I have before, it takes a lot of love and dedication. It's a labor of love to build something open source and actually see it through to completion. And James spent months of his own time doing that. And when I talked to him at one point, I think it was over 6 months spent working on Angular ESLint. And why? Because we didn't have a solution, because TSLint and Codalizer were both being deprecated. right? Their time was ending. And then James was like, yo, we need something. So spent some time to make it happen, which is absolutely phenomenal. Then I think about people like Sonder, Elias, and Frosty, and the rest of the team at Scully.io, who made Scully out of a passion for letting Angular developers use their existing skills to build these fast static apps like the Jamstack, based on like the Jamstack, but to use your Angular skills to build these really fast static apps. And this is an open source project that is free for you, the Angular developers, the Angular community, to be able to use to get the things that you want done. Really phenomenal work. And then this is ironic that I'm including Tracy in this, not because she's hosting this, but it was a part of the story. Look at where we are right now. Sure, we are at the ATL Angular Meetup, but what's really interesting is the Angular World Tour was Tracy and the team at this.labs' idea, right? Because Tracy and that team, they love Angular and they love the Angular community and wanted to put on this incredible world tour so that way we can interact and build and grow with the community. And this is only one of the things that Tracy and the team does. They do workshops, they do meetups, they do trainings, they do a ton of stuff, all for the love of Angular and the love of you, the Angular community. Now, there are so many more Angular community members who do some awesome stuff, and I couldn't fit you all into my presentation, but know that I see you and that we see you and that we value you. And matter of fact, here's what I need from everybody who's watching right now. I have something very special for you, the Angular community. You see this? See this hand right here? That's a high five from me to you because you are phenomenal. So let's talk a little bit about Angular at Google. So I'm talking a ton about the Angular community as a whole, but what about Angular at Google? Well, let's talk about it. So internally at Google, we see that there are thousands of developers at Google authoring Angular code monthly because we have somewhere more greater or north of 2,600 projects, something like that, and more that are just like that we're using. And some of your favorite projects are using Angular internally at Google for public-facing projects like Google Cloud Platform or Firebase, right? Google Ads, like tons of cool stuff. And then because the demand is so great, we're training internally about 1,000 engineers a year just to learn Angular so that way they can contribute to this magic. And then we think about adoption in the community. Well, we see that in a recent count on NPM, it's about 1.4. We went from 1.4 to about 2.6 million weekly downloads. Now, this doesn't include any of the private sources where they have a private NPM distribution or anything like that. But just from the public stuff, this is what we get to see, right? And it doesn't count any sources that are not from NPM right now. And then we looked at GitHub. Again, this is public repositories only, but there are about 1.8 million GitHub projects out there, which is really phenomenal to think of that so many of you love Angular. And even this isn't including other sources like GitLab or Bitbucket or private repositories. This is just public stuff that we get to see. Very cool. Now, if we continue our story about the way that Angular is thriving and people are having a blast making great projects with Angular, let's talk about how the community helps to influence Angular, because once again, Angular is open source and we build it in public right alongside you. Here are some of the community contributions that made it into a recent release. There's the PR for avoiding NG zones for throwing some navigation related warnings unnecessarily. We saw that HTTP client now supports specifying request metadata. There was the addition of min and max form validators. And then there's support for app initializer to work with observables. Now, these are just 4 of the great PRs that were merged into a recent release of Angular. But this is what's important here is that this means that you folks, you are working to help build Angular and make it what you believe in. And this is really great. And we're really grateful to see so many of you contributing. So as I'm talking about contributions, you may be interested in, well, what are some ways that I can contribute? Well, first, you can always submit pull requests. That's always an option. And as we just saw, those pull requests are seen and we merge them in when they're a good fit. You can participate in the RFCs, or the request for comments, or you can respond to surveys. So when we put those things out, like we did with the deprecation of IE11, we got your feedback, we heard your feedback, and then we tried to make the best decision to benefit the most number of Angular developers. Here's the thing that's really awesome is that as you folks continue to use Angular, you have a lot of good ideas about how you think Angular can be better. Thus, you submit your feature requests on GitHub, which we love to do that. But as people know, when people submit feature requests, there needs to be some type of process so that way the really great ones that make life easier for the most number of people and that are aligned with our vision for Angular, that they get merged in or they get implemented and merged in. So we actually recently launched a new process that is a great roadmap to understand how we'll do this. Let's take a look. So when we get a new feature request, the first thing we'll do is somebody from the team will look at this issue, and then what they want to do is categorize it. Is it an issue or is it a feature request? If it is a feature request, we will give it a label. All right, then it'll be reviewed from there, and we'll see if it already aligns with where Angular is going. And if it is, we'll label it as prioritized, and then it's going to eventually hopefully get implemented. But there's a different path, because what if it isn't officially or easily recognized and labeled as prioritized? What should we do next? Well, that's where we put it into our new workflow, where it says it'll stay open for 60 days, right? So opened for 60 days, and then you, the Angular community, get to vote on that issue. And if it gets the right number of votes, then we'll keep it open for a second review. Or if it does not, after that 60 days, we'll close it. That number of votes is, we're looking for 20 thumbs up on an issue so it can be reviewed again by the team and prioritized if possible. But if it doesn't, if you don't get the votes, then it's going to get closed. But if it does get the votes, we will label it as prioritized if it's a good fit. Most cases. However, there's this one other case that we have to take into consideration is, well, what happens if it gets the votes, it's reviewed, and it's not labeled as prioritized? Well, this is a great opportunity for you, the Angular community. Sometimes there will be features and ideas that don't make sense to be a part of the core Angular framework, but that doesn't mean it doesn't deserve to come to light. So what we say there is, we'll close it and give you a reason why it doesn't fit with the core vision of Angular, or be aligned with the core vision of where we're going next. We'll do that, but then we'll say, hey, it's open for you to, as a community, to create it as a third-party module where it may just be a better fit. So that's how you can contribute to Angular and keep things nice and crisp. Let's talk about the fresh things in Angular version 12. We just dropped nullish coalescing, so now you can take complex things like this in your templates and convert them into something nice like this. And I know if you're at home and you see, hey, what about calculate age? You shouldn't do that in a template. Yeah, no, we totally get it. We totally get it. This is just an example, but just to show that we went from this complex ternary expression with operators there, and we went to something much smaller, which is nice and clean. Then we have inline Sass in your components. So here's what we're thinking. If you have a component with just a little bit of Sass, something like this, or a little bit larger, this makes a lot of sense to be included in your component. But this actually isn't an invitation to go ahead and turn this into, these giant, massive style blocks in your component decorator. So remember best practices here and do the right thing and keep separation of concerns where applicable. Let's talk about ng build. So we've made an update. So many of you have probably rolled your eyes many a times because you did an ng build and what you wanted was a production build, but what you got was a what? Development build. Well, for new projects, ng build will be production by default. I know, we're happy about it too. But we don't migrate any existing projects automatically. So if you do want to update this, here's a command that you can do. Go ahead and take a screenshot, or you can find this in our documentation. But you can run this ng update command and migrate your production only by default. Okay. Also, strict mode is on by default for new projects. This is going to help you just keep those code bugs down during your editing time when you're writing your code, because strict mode will find those bugs sooner before you get to production, hopefully, for a lot of those things. So strict mode is going to help you write some really great code. If you want to understand about why we think strict mode is a best practice in Angular, check out this blog written by Miko Getchev, Angular Enabling Best Practices. Check this out. I think you'll find a lot of value in that. Here's some more updates that made it into our recent version 12 release. Webpack 5 is production ready, which is super exciting. We've updated the version to support of TypeScript to 4.2. The Ivy-based language service is enabled by default. So previously, this was something that was opt-in. Now our plugin for Visual Studio Code is enabled by default. And this is really cool because Ivy is such a great part of Angular and what it enables for us to do. Even with the Ivy-based language service and templates, you can get like compiler level parity when you're finding like errors and things like that, all because of the power of Ivy. And Ivy everywhere is where we want to go, actually. So right now, people are still, right now there are still existing libraries that are View Engine only, but View Engine is deprecated. In order to completely remove View Engine in a future version, we encourage everyone to migrate their existing libraries over to Ivy, because right now we have a compatibility mode that's available, but we want to get to Ivy everywhere and remove even those steps from the build process. So head over to improving library distribution. Okay, so now we talked about what's happening. Let's talk about the future of Angular. Just in Q2, we've been keeping faithful to our roadmap. So in Q2 alone, guess what we saw? We saw that there was a release of Angular DevTools. We streamlined our release process. There's the updated Trusted Types API because we worked with the Chrome team to implement this so you can have safer, more secure apps. And we really worked hard on optimizing build speed and bundle sizes for Angular. Now, all these items have something in common. They're all on the Angular roadmap. So that's where we're keeping our source of truth as to what we're working on. So from the roadmap, here are some things that we're exploring now for the future. Well, we actually just announced the deprecation and removing of support for IE 11 when we released version 12. But we're also exploring ES 2017 Plus as the default output language, because there's some really cool expressive JavaScript that we can take advantage of if we use this as our targeted output language. We're working on and exploring how to improve test times and debugging, right? We want to make that experience smoother and faster for you folks. We've been working on publishing some advanced guides for things like how change detection works with Zone.js and more. And then, yes, I know. You see this. I can see you all cheering all the way from here. Optional NG modules. Now, I don't know when this will be available for you. However, we are exploring what does the world look like with optional NG modules. So updates will come when they're available, but I don't have any dates for you right now. But know that we hear you folks and we are working on looking at this. Okay. So that's it for me. That was a bit of a whirlwind tour of what's happening with the community, the fantastic community that you folks are out there. And thank you for doing what you do, because we're only going as far as the community will take us. So thank you for that. And we talked about what's happening with Angular, the latest release, and we talked about where Angular is going. So that's it for me. So until the next time, I want to tell you, friends, go build great apps.
And
thank you.
High five.
Oh, you need that high five. Seriously, everyone get that hand up. You can let me warm it up a little bit for you. You see that? High five from me to you.
I love it. There are some questions in the chat. So Mark, I'll let you get on YouTube and answer those questions. And now
Sounds
it's
good.
time for my talk. So let me go ahead and pull up my slides right here. Let's see, present. Okay, there we go. Hope everyone is having a nice lunchtime today. Let's see. Okay. No, that's not it. That is not it. How do I? Oh my God. I swear I never have technical difficulties. It's only because that talk by Mark was so amazing that I just like can't even handle myself right now. It's like a sugar high, but a Mark high. Okay. So today I'm going to talk about a really awesome topic that I love and that is near and dear to my heart. But I'm going to go ahead and arrange my screens really quickly. Okay, there we go. So how do I contribute to open source? This is a question that I get a lot. You might be out there wondering, how do I contribute to open source? Well, the amazing thing about contributing is that it's actually really easy. And there's so many ways to do so. So if you've been sitting on it and thinking, oh man, I should contribute, like how, and getting stuck in that, hopefully this will kind of get you unstuck and get you out there now, because that's what we want. We want the Angular community to be bigger and better with more contributors and more amazing people doing amazing things. So this is going to be just a quick start guide to contributing to open source. My name is Tracy. You can follow me on Twitter at LadyLeet. I'm the CEO of a company called This.Labs. We're about a 50% tech consultancy. I love what we do. I love the JavaScript community. I'm on the ArcsJS core team, GD for Angular, Microsoft MVP, and I'm always out there doing some random thing. So Motto of Podcast, GDG, Women Tech Makers, and I'm also in Atlanta, just moved here. And I'm looking for new friends. So definitely come hang out or come work with me. So going back to my day job, it's called This Dot, and it's pretty cool. We get to work on some amazing projects. So Twilio, Google, Roblox, Wikimedia, T-Mobile, etc. Like, it's really fun to get to, kind of help push these companies forward in so many different amazing ways. And again, we're hiring. So if you love Angular or other technologies, definitely reach out to me. 100% remote. It's always going to be remote. And I love talking to new developers, so I'd love to hear from you. So let's get back to the biggest question, which is how do I contribute to open source? Well, we're going to talk a little bit about my journey today. Then we'll talk about your why and why you want to contribute, then the how based on your why, and then going over some do's and don'ts to consider when you're starting your journey. So let's go ahead and start off with my journey. Hopefully this will help guide you all, or at least give you like one path into doing this, right? So I started at a boot camp, and I started meeting the JavaScript community, hopped on Twitter, started getting involved. And again, I'm on the ArcsJS core team at GDE for Angular or Microsoft MVP. And a lot of people ask, like, well, how on earth did I do this? Well, the first thing I did was join that community, finding those people on Twitter, talking to people, who's talking about Angular, who's speaking at conferences, what conferences are going on. I got to know everybody. Then what I started doing was I started sharing and educating, right? Like I started talking about my experience about learning Angular. Like I remember when Angular router, the new Angular router had just been written, and I was like trying to get it to work. And finally I got it to work, and I was like so excited about it. Those types of things I was sharing on Twitter, telling people about my journey. I blogged about everything I learned. I remember when Angular Material was an alpha and everybody was like, please don't use it. But I was like, I need Angular Material to work. So wrote blog posts about that. And this helped, again, the community understand that I was interested in topics, and I was able to give back in my own way, right? Even just as a beginner. And this helped me become a member of the community. I also met maintainers. So meeting people so they know who you are and get to know you is so important. I met tons of open source maintainers, developed relationships online, whether it was at meetups, conferences, again, online. And I was just, friendly, helpful, whatever. And that's all you need to do. Just be nice, friendly, and the rest will kind of come. The last step was, of course, contributing, right? So I always knew I wanted to give back more than I was to the community. So I always kept a lookout on where help was needed. I was great friends with the ArcsJS core team, and I saw that they were really struggling with like keeping up with the documentation, and they really needed to form a community team to help take on this project because most of the core team members just didn't have time to do this. So I was like, wow, I'm really good at doing this. I can totally help here, right? So I volunteered to gather together a docs team and jumpstart on the docs, and that totally worked. And we found so many new amazing Angular core team members because of it, right? And it's been really amazing to watch that RxJS core team generally just grow. So one thing is, after I started doing this for a while and I was spending like a lot of time on it, that's when they said, okay, you know what, we want you to officially be a part of the core team, which I was like, okay, yeah, cool, that's totally awesome. But if you start contributing, definitely don't like expect this to be part of your journey. Don't expect to become part of the core team. That's not really the point, right? The point is to be helpful, contribute, and someday you will hopefully get rewarded. Or, sometimes it's a curse because then all of a sudden people need your time. So whatever you want, you will get. But be careful what you wish for. So hopefully you understand a little bit about my path and see that, it's pretty easy to do, right? You just got to get up and start doing it. Now I want to give you some information about, the whys and the hows for contributing to open source. So I think the first question you need to ask yourself is, why do you want to contribute to open source? A lot of people say that, and I always ask them, why? Is it a functional reason? Is it aspirational? So let's go ahead and define these two terms first. So, functional would be, I need to fix something that's not working for me. There's a ton of people that are using something like Angular or RxJS at work, and they're working on a project and they need something to work that's not potentially working within a library. If you want to fix something in open source and make it work for your work, I would consider this something functional, right? And the second is aspirational. So open source is a great way to build a career, get a new job, increase your knowledge within a technology. So that's what I would call aspirational. And both paths are really awesome, but how you actually approach them is a little bit different. So the first thing to do is let's explore functional, right? So if you want to fix something that's not working for you, one of the first recommendation I would give you is give before you ask. Your life is going to be 10 times easier, and you're going to get so much better results if you're already a contributor to the community or the repo that you're looking to fix for your work. It's going to be faster. It's going to be more seamless. People trust you already, right? So if you can't always give before you ask. I think one of the other things is make sure before you start working on something to submit an issue and ask for feedback first, right? So if you want something to change, whether that's a really big functionality or a small change, make sure to ask for feedback. Submit an issue, find a maintainer to champion your issue. Maintainers are really busy, so it's much easier again if you have already given back to the community, you've already contributed to repo, because then they're like, okay, this person does good work, right? But one of the reasons why to also submit an issue is because there's a lot going on behind closed doors that you might not know. You might really want a feature, but maybe the core team has already talked about it and they said, no, we're not going to do this. Maybe the work that you want is already being worked on privately or is already planned. So you really don't want to waste hours of your time, weeks of your time trying to do something if it's just not going to be merged, right? That would be annoying and frustrating. The third thing is just finding maintainers in other forums. Try to build relationships with people, whether it's on Twitter, email if you need a response, right? GitHub notifications and issues are super noisy. Nobody can keep up with them, especially if you're an open source maintainer. So if you send somebody a nice message about your question, it's a much easier way to get a quick response than GitHub. But definitely try not to be impatient and don't feel entitled to a response. Everyone is busy and you're usually not the top priority. But if you've already given back to that repo and already contributed, you might become a bigger top priority. So again, going back to number one, give before you ask. Now, the last step I would say is in the how to approach this is make sure you're building genuine relationships, right? Don't try to, not just I'm using you because I need something at work, right? Nobody likes to be used or feel used in a relationship. Nobody wants to just serve your needs, right? Be genuine and remember that open source is doing good for the community and really not to serve the selfish needs of others. I love this one, aspirational, because you can like do whatever you want basically, right? You don't have to be confined to a specific repo that you're working on at work. You can just do anything. So, you know, I think the first thing is like, again, come with a genuine heart, right? Like, do it because you want to make a community better. If you're doing it just to push your own agenda, or like, hey, I'm just contributing to open source because I want to get a job, like, nobody's going to support that. The first thing, again, is like, when you are aspirational and it is an aspirational goal to contribute to open source, you get to choose which project to contribute to. So you should be looking at them and asking, like looking at issues, for example, and saying, can I be a successful contributor? Are there issues I can tackle? Have I used the library? Can I help with documentation, right? Next thing is like, do I like the team? Look at the RFCs, the PRs, the responses and the issues. Can I see myself working with them? If it's a no, you can go find something else. You can find other teams. There's tons of different teams with different cultures out there, and you'll find your fit typically, hopefully. So the next thing is making sure that you're, you know, solving the problems that maintainers want, right? So when we look at something and we don't have, you know, like you think you know, but like unless you're a part of the core team, you don't really know everything, right? It's hard to know everything. Solve problems that they actually want, not what you think are relevant. Work on those first, right? There's tons of issues usually in repos marked as good first issue or looking for help or whatever. So, you know, another thing is before you actually start working on that issue that might be in that repo, make sure to double check by commenting and asking like, is anyone actually working on this issue? And then, you know, once you hear back, go ahead and start contributing. Another really good tip for this is to think about all the things that you don't love in your job. Maybe it's like reviewing PRs. Maybe they need some help reviewing PRs. You can go into repos and see like open PRs and give a quick code review, right? That might be helpful. And I think people would definitely appreciate it. Everybody could use another set of eyes. You know, other things you could do is maybe if you see like some bugs that are being reported in the issues, but maybe they don't have like screenshots or like video walkthroughs or whatever that are easy to reproduce, you can like go and maybe reproduce those yourself or try to, and then record it and like add that to the GitHub issue, right? It's really easy, it's quick, you don't have to be an expert in it to do that, but it's incredibly helpful. Another really easy thing to do is to help with the docs. Docs always need help. You know, every maintainer you talk to will be like, we could use help with the docs, right? So if you're using the documentation actively, there's going to be holes and you're going to see them. Live examples, wording, better explanations. I mean, there's so much that can be added to documentation always. So that is a really great place to start. And a lot of the people that we look up to within the community that are like these open source heroes that we see all started with the documentation. So, you know, really start with the docs. I can't recommend that enough. And the last thing is making sure you're educating and sharing about your experience, right? If you're passionate about something, you can talk about your experience, what you love, how to use certain features, what are upcoming features, what are some challenges you ran into, how you solve those challenges. Like, you don't have to directly contribute to a repo to be useful and relevant within a community. And any and all education is always wanted and needed. So last thing I want to talk about is just a few do's and don'ts within open source. So I think the first thing for the do's is make sure to have compassion. Maintainers are usually working for free on nights and weekends, so it's difficult, right? Treat maintainers like people. They're just as human as you are. They can only handle so many things at one time. If you're going to treat them like crap, they're not going to care about you or want to work with you, right? Be professional. Even though you're not getting paid and like open source seems like the Wild West out there and it's just whatever, right? You know, people do like expect other people to be professional and have professional etiquette. So definitely treat your open source relationships with that level of professionalism. Yeah, I mean, what else can I say there? Also assume of the best of intentions. Like you don't want to go into a project and be like, why is this code so crappy? Why did you do this? Like, why are you ignoring me? Like, why was this code written that way? You know, nobody's going to give you the time of day. And also, like, you weren't there, right? So always assume the best of intentions when approaching any code base that you go into. It's especially open source because it's tireless and it's an often thankless job to keep everyone happy. Lastly, for the do's is make sure you are abiding by a code of conduct. So usually open source projects have a code of conduct, and you will be kicked out if you don't abide by that code of conduct. But if they don't, then just make sure you're like being nice to people. Now for the don'ts, you know, I kind of talked about this before. It's this idea of like not feeling or acting entitled, right? Be nice, be patient. Don't think you're a maintainer's biggest priority because you're not, right? Usually they have a full-time job and a full-time job in open source. Plus, they probably have children or something like that, you know, so it's really difficult to juggle everything. Don't be annoying. Another one, you know, you can email about something, but like don't email 10 times a day. Follow up, but within reason. Also, don't complain, right? Everyone's trying their best. And sometimes, again, you might not understand why a technical decision was made. But again, it's probably because you're not as close to the decisions as others who made those decisions. And, you know, a lot of maintainers will also say, if you want to complain about something, go use a different library or fork it because, you know, you're getting something for free, essentially. So hopefully that was educational for you all. I'm always happy to talk on Twitter about my experiences, or if you all need help, like thinking about how you want to contribute to open source, whatever. Hopefully you all understand some of the nuances as well of contributing to an open source community. I hope I inspired you all to start helping with the documentation and, you know, helping with just generally contributing, right? Reminder again that we are hiring. We have like this really amazing team of 50 developers, 100% remote and worldwide always. So, you know, it's just a fun place to be. And again, I'm always happy to like chat and hang out. And even though we do Angular and Vue and React and Lit and all the other things, like Angular definitely has a special place in my heart. So I would love to talk to you all. Yeah, and I hope to see your resumes soon. Cool.
Well, thank you so much, Tracy and Mark and Ben. You're out there somewhere, I know. Definitely appreciate everything. So I just have a few quick closing slides. I guess, well, actually, before we get into that, were there any questions that we needed to still answer live, or do we close it out?
I think Tony Fields had one question that Tracy might be able to answer. It was about, I'm still somewhat new to software development. What are some reasons why you would want to submit your own project to open source versus not submitting it?
Submit your own project to open source. You mean like you created a project and you just want to open source it? What are you guys saying?
Answer that question. I think that's an interesting question.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like all my side projects are always open source because like whatever, you know, I mean, you can always close source it later on if you want, but I think learning in public is really important. And if you're sharing something like, hey, I built this app or whatever, you know, you'll find people on Twitter and within the community, they'll be like, oh, this is so interesting. Oh, I did a code review for you. Oh, I helped you do a little refactor, right? So if you're doing that, you're providing more opportunities for people to get involved in your project, which is really fun and exciting. Also, it shows like potential employers and things like that, like what you do, how you interact with people, and all of that is really valuable in building your resume.
Yeah, I would agree. I think like going open source public first, there's a lot of like learnings that you'll get from doing that you probably won't even notice because you have to get your stuff to a certain point that is, you know, there where otherwise you wouldn't. You know, sometimes you take some shortcuts. I mean, maybe I take some shortcuts when I just, you know, do like a quick hack, but hey, it happens. Cool. Awesome. Well, let me just go ahead and share some slides here. I don't know if y'all can see that. There we go. So we got through that. Thank y'all. Something I did want to mention is within the Atlanta community, we've got an in-person event happening, which is the first one in a long time. And so I'm not sure everyone's comfort level with this, but I did want to mention it. So Pratik and Vincent have an event happening tomorrow evening. It's on Meetup. I will paste the link to the YouTube. And if you are a member of the Atlanta JavaScript Meetup group, you should have gotten an email about it as well, but did want to plug it here real quickly. Opportunities, one more quick mention that Cypress is hiring. Check out the jobs and roles that we have at cypress.io/jobs. There is literally everything on that list. Like, you're going to scroll for days. And if you don't see something that's a good fit for you, ping me and we can maybe chat. And then another shout out for Tracy's team as well. You guys are hiring. So lots of hiring going on. And then last but not least, if you have opportunities that you want to share with the community, check out the JavaScript discussion board. Feel free to post there, both if you're looking to hire and if you're looking for a role. Quick little mention to follow us. If you're not already following us on Twitter, do that. Same thing with YouTube. I'm not sure, this video probably will not make it to our YouTube channel, but all the rest of our meetups that are recorded are there as well. And then last but not least, my favorite closing slide, a candle loses nothing by lighting another candle. This is really just meant to encourage you to share what you have, what you know with others, because you're nothing less because you shared it. And with that, I will thank everyone for coming out, and we will, see you virtually or in person soon.
Yes, thank you all. And we'll see you all on Twitter too. Me and Mark are waiting for you.
Sounds good, friends. Thanks so much.